Young Hackney Substance Misuse Service is a service for young people between the ages of 6 and 25. Our aims are to help prevent first use amongst young people, to delay first use amongst young people, and to provide harm reduction, information and advice where needed.
So Paul, how do you find Will Smith in The Snow?
I don't know, how do you find Will Smith in
You look for Fresh Prince. Okay, so quickly moving on. Welcome to the first episode of Let's Speak About Drugs.
That's so bad.
I am Deepak Craig, assistant youth worker for the Young Hackney Substance Misuse Service, and with me is...
I'm Paul Hira, substance misuse treatment worker for Young Hackney.
Cool. And today we're going to be, what is our topic of discussion for today?
Today's topic is just, is basic drugs awareness. Just getting some of the facts and fiction and maybe a little bit of harm minimization to keep young people, young adults safe.
It's all about minimizing the harm, I think.
Yes, reducing the associated risk.
Yep, cool. But before we go into all of that, this is our Mythbuster segment. And then we're going to add some sound effects in there. Time for the Mythbuster section. This is where we dispel a common misconception in the drug world. So, myth. Only drug addicts have a problem. You want to know the fact of the matter?
Yeah, tell me the fact. Cool. I don't think that's true, but I'm sure that you'll have an idea behind this.
Well, because I got this from the internet. Obviously, I'm not as knowledgeable as you, so I had to Google it. But if you have anything to add on top of this Excel, then feel free. But the fact is, addiction or dependency is not the only problem drugs can cause. Some people have problems the first time they use the drug, or problems may develop as you use them more often. Drugs can also affect your physical and mental health, your family life, relationships, and your work or study. Using illegal drugs can also get you into trouble with the law or cause money problems. So,
true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's true. It can cause a whole range of social and physical issues.
At this point, we move on to the topic of the day. This is where I hand you over to the knowledgeable, what's one of your nicknames? The Great One. What do they call you?
I don't think there's any nicknames.
Okay.
Yeah, not unless there's. I'm not aware of them. I'm not sure. We're currently in a situation that we've not been in ever before in my career as a drugs worker. In terms of not being able to see people face to face. So the idea of bringing this podcast to the many, as it aims to do, is to inform and just give a bit of information around people's questions to some drugs that they might be bored, or they might be curious about a substance, and because they haven't got that easy access to their friends or to their peers around them, they might make a ill-informed choice. So we're here today to try and dispel some myths, to answer some questions, and just give a bit of information that if people do decide to either smoke some weed or drink some alcohol, that they have some basic information to keep them safe while they're using a substance.
Sure.
And I think the other side of that is that if they do find themselves in the category of addiction, or they're having a problem or an issue with the substance that they're using, then they know that they can either send us a message via Twitter. They can email us at the email address that we'll put up later on, or they can call our duty line in order to get more advice and information for help with their substance use. Young Hackney's Substance Misuse Service is a service within a service. So if young people are interested in accessing a range of other youth-led activities, sports, diversion activities, they can call. They can come through, Young Hackney's website, and they can sign up to a range of different activities that young people can find out from our wider service, Young Hackney, where they can, access, stuff from sports right through to sexual health information, advice, including, as we're talking about today, drugs and alcohol.
You heard it here first on Let's Speak About Drugs from Paul Hira. At this point, we move on to the question and answer section. So we've got a guest.
Cool.
So without any further ado, we have Saf with us. Let's give Saf not a round of applause, because I think there'll be too much feedback, but let's just imagine. I might add some sound effects.
Welcome, Saf. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm not bad, thank you.
Good.
How is the lockdown?
I'm very bored right now. Not now, but
Wow.
in general.
Paul, I think we need to.
But she said right now we haven't started answering any other questions. This is
but she's basically saying everything before now. Just before that.
No. In general.
Okay.
I don't think that's what. I didn't receive it that way. That's not the way I received it. So.
Thank you, Paul.
No problem.
So Saf, you got any questions you'd like to know the answers to?
Yeah. So how do you know if you're actually addicted to drugs?
That is it's like a job interview. obviously, there is this thing called tolerance, and your tolerance it changes over a period of time. I'm so scared of my answer. so your tolerance changes. Take the example of somebody using a cigarette, and maybe when they start using that cigarette, they'll smoke a bit of it or a half of it, and then as they continue to develop a sort of a relationship with that cigarette, they might smoke 3 a day, and then that starts to increase to 4, 5, maybe they're smoking more and more, and before they know it, their tolerance has changed, and it's what they do, whether they get to a point where they say, oh no, I don't want this anymore, or they start to rely on the cigarette to help them function, so help them feel. In terms of a cigarette, it would increase the flow of energy or motivation or blood around the body, because it's a central nervous stimulant. So they might start to use that for them to increase their motivation, or use it before doing something, or have it after an incident where they've got stressed or something like that, and that forms part of an addiction when somebody's using a substance to help them with their thoughts, their feelings or emotions.
So would you say if you kind of need it to function in a certain aspect of your life, then would you say that you're addicted? If
you're using a substance that helps, in terms that you think that it helps you to have a motive, or to be to motivate you to go and do something, or help you to get to sleep, or then this substance is not really something that you're using for pleasure, where drugs are used. Drugs are used because people think that they are fun. If you're using them to help you with getting to sleep, or dealing with stress or anxiety, or you're drinking too much alcohol because you're trying to block issues in your life, then this starts to form the part of the addiction model with that person, and they become reliant or dependent upon that substance.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
You probably could have.
What is the cheapest drug to buy?
Oxygen. It's free.
True.
Buying of any illegal substance
Yeah.
is against the law, and I wouldn't advise it anyway. And you don't even have to buy drugs for it to be cheap. You know, people share their substances with their friends, which also is against the law, really. So if your friends are in the park and one of them pass you a spliff, a joint, whatever you want to call it, pass you that, and you take that, that is a sign of drugs being dealt. And money doesn't have to change hands for that, because that is also a form of dealing. So yeah, drugs vary at different prices, different weights, and different prices in different areas.
So if you take a spliff from your friend in the park, you could be arrested for that.
Yeah, but you could be arrested for possession, because you'll be holding this substance in your hand.
Interesting.
If you're being watched, let's say undercover police officers, or you're being watched, or a neighbour's complained about people in the park doing that, and you've been watched passing that spliff over to somebody, the person passing it could be arrested for the possession with intent to supply, because they're supplying the person with that substance.
Does taking soft drugs, for example, weed, lead to taking like hard drugs like cocaine?
Is weed a soft drug? That is my question.
It's interesting, isn't it? What is a soft drug and what's a hard drug?
True.
I think it very much depends on whose hands, you know, who's using this substance and how they're using it. You know, there is in terms of in my world, I don't think there is such a thing as a soft drug. In terms of the categories, cannabis would be, you know, weed would be probably classified less harmful than something like cocaine, because of the element of risk. However, it's the internal damage that I suppose that weed would do that we can't actually see. So it's that internal damage that can have a long-term effect on us. There's research out there that, you know, smoking weed lowers the IQ because of its chemicals, you know, of THC. There's research out there that you know, cannabis increases some drug-induced psychosis, and it depends on person to person. So, you know, somebody can be smoking for a short amount of time and run into problems, or somebody could be smoking for a long amount of times and never have an issue with it, and not necessarily is weed the gateway drug to other drugs, because you know, I think it's around person. I think if a person's tolerance to weed changes, you know, there might be a friend that says, oh, you don't want to use that, let's try some of this, but not necessarily would that person want to move to that substance because they're happy with smoking weed. So I think it's person to person, really. But curiosity, you know what that did?
Something to a feline. I'm not sure if we're allowed to say.
Oh, we're not allowed to say that word. Oh,
I don't know.
Okay, well, we might have to remove this completely.
No, we haven't broken any rules.
Okay, yeah.
I've got a question.
Oh.
What do you say to people who say you can't get addicted to weed?
Weed
isn't addictive.
I would say that it's more of a psychological addiction rather than a physical addiction. So a person, you know, would probably use weed as a motive. So they'll be like, I'll smoke this spliff and then I'll tidy my room, which gives that person kudos around that weed helps me. However, I think the thing is that people can stop smoking weed. They might have a few grumpy nights and lack of sleep, but they can stop smoking weed without support. Where tobacco, you would need like nicotine replacement therapy and stuff like that. So, you know, I think the thing is that it's more of a psychological addiction rather than a physical. Any more? How many you got, Saffron?
How many do I have, or how many?
Yeah.
13.
Whoa!
Oh.
Yeah.
So I think we'll take maybe another 2 more questions.
Cool.
And then you could save the rest for the next time you're on.
As alcohol is legal, is it safer than taking illegal drugs?
This is a myth as well in terms of
Bust
alcohol.
that myth, Paul?
Alcohol is
That myth.
alcohol is set for is for people over the age of 18 because of the harm that it does to the body. So this is why it's set at such an age, because of the damage it does to some of our internal organs. So yeah, alcohol may be legal, but it's responsible for a high amount of fatalities, deaths related to drinking, especially within young people. Possibly over a weekend period, at least 1,000 young people get admitted to A&E for a drink-related incident. Either they've got into a fight, they've got run over, they've passed out, they've choked on their own vomit, or they died. So it's not as safe as people think it can be. Yeah, alcohol is probably up there with most of the other harmful substances, and that's why it's only allowed for people over the age of 18.
What is the most addictive drug?
See, it's really difficult because it depends on who's using them in terms of addiction. So
Yeah.
Nicotine comes to mind quite a lot as being really addictive. Because it's how it's used from a really young age, and it manipulates most of our receptors in our brain. So I think tobacco would be probably the first. It's probably the first drug that most young people start to experiment with, and it manipulates our receptors in our brain. So when we've had a good test result, or we've been given a present, or we've done something that makes us feel euphoric or elated, the brain would automatically recognize that feeling, and the triggers would trigger you to smoke a cigarette. So your reward pathway is manipulated from a young age, and that could potentially lead to people being addicted to that substance or dependent upon that substance.
Cool.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Saf.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Cool.
It answers my question of whether or not Paul knows what he's talking about, and the answer is yes, because you've been just back to back.
Oh, I see.
Question, answer. Love it. I love it. Okay, well, that was our guest, Saf, for the week, and thanks, Saf, for coming in.
You're welcome.
This brings us on to the next segment, which is the requests. The requests. Anyone who wants to ask questions, like Seth has done today, you can do.
I think it's important that it's said that we're not here to influence or encourage or
Two's fine.
Yeah, whatever. People into experimenting with drugs. What we're here to do is, if they have a question or they're struggling themselves with their own drug use or somebody else's, they can get in contact with us. You can tweet us at Twitter at Young Hackney. You can email us at yhsms@hackney.gov.uk.
And you can call us on our advice and consultation line on 0208 356 7377, and that's open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Monday to Friday.
This is Advice Box.
We're informing people that if they are using drugs, they can be potentially harmful. And it's about, so they start off with a small amount. They avoid mixing it with other drugs. They avoid mixing it with other drugs, especially alcohol. If they're with people, they try and look after their friends that are using the substance by keeping themselves as drugs free as they can. If their friends are sleeping or they're unconscious, it's important that people know the recovery position and they put their friends in a recovery position. It's also important that if the people run into trouble, that they tell somebody what they've taken, what drug they've used, in order, if they need some emergency assistance, that person can say, yeah, my friend has taken this drug, or they used X or Y or Z, so that somebody knows how to give that, some medical assistance to that person. We inform people that they should, know their drug, know their dose, and they know their dealer. They buying it from a trusted source. We know people are buying over social media, Snapchat and things like that. And sometimes we don't know what we're getting until we've got it. And then sometimes we could be using something completely different. we inform people to protect themselves by, carrying condoms, because some of these drugs make us behave in certain ways.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's important that you know your drug, know your dose, and above all that you know your dealer.
And that brings us to the end of Advice Box. This is the end of our first episode of Let's Speak About Drugs, a Young Hackney Substance Misuse Service podcast, with me, Dupe,
Me, Paul,
and our special guest.
Saf.
Thanks for listening,
Thanks,
guys.
Great. Bye.
Bye-bye.